Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the call center and contact center podcast, where we try to give you actionable items to take back into your contact center, improve your overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve the customer experience as well. I guess that's the whole point of this, right? For those of you who do not know me by now, my name is Tom Laird. I'm the CEO of Expivia Interaction Marketing. We are a 500-seat contact center outsourcer located here in the States. Work from home and on-prem, and also the founder and CEO of Auto QA, where we're fully scoring contact center quality calls using AI. And I want to talk a lot about Auto QA today. Obviously, we're using this with all of our customers at Expivia, but this question, and I do probably, over the last 3 years, I've probably done one podcast a year on this topic, and it's constantly, I don't want to say evolving, but it's unfolding to be more and more true as we see costs of what some of these other QA companies are doing. And again, I don't want to make this this is not a sales podcast for Auto QA, although, we're definitely going to talk about some of the benefits of doing QA this way, right? Using AI in the most, I think, efficient way possible to make sure that you're getting ROI instantly. So whether you use us, whether you use somebody else, I think this is a main topic that you need to be informed about, and you need to be able to ask questions when you're talking to, a provider or somebody that you're looking to possibly bring on as a vendor to do QA with. So there's two main ways to kind of jump right into this thing, right? There's two main ways that people are scoring calls and billing for it from a kind of technology partner platform format, right? And the main one still is the old school, everybody's always used it, technology and CCaaS and CX, which is your seat license, right? So looking at the amount of agents that you have, tagging them all with a license, and you pay for that, right? Now, some of these prices, and again, this is the stuff that no one else tells you. And this is the honest to God truth. I mean, I'm putting my name to this thing. This is everything that I have really seen is, number one, the large language models overall to do things at scale for 100% of calls are extremely expensive. I have talked to head people at CCaaS platforms. I mean, you guys know I know a lot of those type of individuals, and they have kind of picked my brain, and we've had conversations on this on how to get the costs down for QA, right? If you're doing a seat license, you have to score 100%. So what we have found is that they come nowhere near using overall. They don't use the best models, right? There's a lot of different tactics with caching and things that you can do to keep your costs down. But it's not going to matter when you have a 250 seat center, taking 3-minute, 4-minute calls, right? The volume of call is just so intense, right? I guess technically that would matter. I mean, if you have a longer call, it's less, but it's the same amount of tokens, right? It's just the amount of people, the amount of scale, the amount of cost. So when you go onto these websites, you'll see for most of them, which I kind of respect, right? They're honest and they say, hey, we really only have an accuracy kind of threshold of up to about 85%, right? So there's still going to need to be some manual overview, but overall, right, we're going to, be about 80, 85, 87% accurate when it comes to scoring how your internal team scores versus how our AI tool is going to score. So that's the trade-off. Right. So, and that's the thing that nobody tells you. So you can have 100% of your calls scored. What I am seeing, it's well over $100 per seat, right? Not all platforms, but the main guys are over $100 per seat per license, right? Upwards of $130 to $135. So you can pay $135 per seat to get 85%, and let's even give them 90% accuracy, but you get 100% of your calls scored, or you do it the other way. So this is the route that we have taken. And again, understandably, we are not going to be, auto QA is not going to be for the 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 seat center, right? We're going to be too expensive. But for the smaller center, under 500 seats, under 200 seats, 10 seats, right? We are going to be extremely cost effective. We're going to be more cost effective than a seat license. So what we do is we utilize a usage model, right? So you pay for how many calls do you want scored? And people say, well, Tom, we're not getting 100% scored. And my answer to that is, yeah, that's good. I mean, that's that's not a bad thing, because I think if you're paying to score every call in your contact center, you're not getting better data. You're just spending more money, right? This is kind of this thought process, though, this math that I'm about to tell you, right? It's been backed by about 300 years of proof, right? There's this statistical principle called the law of large numbers, right? And it's the same thing that allows, pollsters to predict elections. Now, you can insert a joke there, right? But overall, right, they can predict or become with a margin of error pretty close with just 1,000 responses from a certain electorate. It's the way that pharmaceuticals can improve drugs without testing every human being, right? They have a sample size that they know is going to be within a margin of error. We can apply these same principles to your QA to get you with 99% accuracy with a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. So meaning, if auto QA scores something at an 87, right? We're going to be, maybe you're human beings. And we have found that human beings, if I score a call and whoever's listening to this scores a call and your QA person scores a call and your contact center manager scores a call, the average is 5 to 7% that you're going to be off, right? So that's why we say we are more accurate than human beings, because we're 99% accurate, right? Within a margin of error plus or 3%. So sometimes I'll say 96%, or I'll say the 99% plus or minus. So meaning, if auto scores a call at an 85%, right, goes through all your questions, tabulates all your points, and is 85, there's going to be a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. So it could be, 88%, maybe you have all the way down to maybe at 83, right? But we're in that 85. So you can get that accurate. And I would argue much more accurate than scoring 100% of your calls at only that 85% accuracy. So again, I don't know, hopefully I'm explaining that well, but it blows my mind why people are paying $135 per seat, signing long-term contracts, having massive minimums, when really they should be asking the question, why am I doing all that? And why do I need to score all of these calls when I'm not getting any more data or insights from them? Especially if you're under 500 seats, if you're 200 seats, if you're something smaller, there's absolutely zero reason that you should be paying a seat license. You should be using the law of large numbers. You should be having a certain percentage done with the highest large language model you can to give you the most accurate results with the lowest margin of error, which is going to be, believe it or not, more accurate than 100% of calls. Nobody wants to talk about that because everybody does the seat license thing. And so nobody wants to say the quiet thing out loud. I'm saying it out loud, right? I think that the law of large numbers is more accurate than 100% of your calls scored. Sampling with the highest margins, with the highest large language models, with the most accurate large language models, with the most expensive models, which is what we do. So it's crazy to kind of think that through, but when you add the logic to it, it makes total sense. So there's a couple things though that I want to kind of bring up here too, and let me bring up my notes here, because there's a lot of worry right now. Let me say this before I even do that. If you have compliance questions, right? So we worked for some BPOs that are like, Tom, I don't have a choice. Like my client is going to pay for 100% of these calls scored because they can't even have one compliance issue. That's a whole different story. But the cool thing with that is we can just score those specific calls or those specific sections of the call. So you could say, hey, listen, we're going to score the entire form, right, at the regular cost, right? And we only need to do, 4%, 5%, 7%, right? So if there's 60,000 calls, maybe we do, 2,000 or 1,500 calls, right? To make sure that we get to that number. And that all depends on how many calls, how many agents, all that stuff, right? So we have all that math. So I think that's kind of the biggest kind of fallback there, right? Is we can kind of tell you exactly what you need to do, right, to be in that kind of space to have your margin of error be, really where it's supposed to be. So let me calm some people here too, right? So, and again, just quickly to get back to that, we can then just take the two questions, right? So you have two questions that have to be compliance. We can almost give you those for free, score 100% of those, and still you'd be way under kind of where everybody else is from a seat license standpoint. So again, I think that story, and again, I don't know if I'm telling it well, is not being told enough. So again, if you're a large contact center with 10,000 seats, 5,000 seats, yeah, I'm going to be, or a usage model will probably be too expensive for you. And you got to kind of just stick with your 85% accurate, because the models just won't allow that. But for most contact centers, 30-seat centers, 50-seat centers, you should not be paying for a seat license. And you should be just using a usage model, right? Using the law of large numbers. And again, I have a full blog post that I did today that kind of gives an example. So a 60,000 monthly call center, right? So a call center that's taking 60,000 calls, right? What we would recommend at Auto, right? And we're saying that for this, again, about a 5-minute call, we're recommending to give you a 99% confidence level plus or minus a 3% margin of error. That would be just scoring 1,789 calls per month. Okay. That gets you to that 99% accuracy. Our algorithm also spreads it over all of your agents. We make sure that we hit that. Sometimes, depending on the amount of agents you have, we have to bump up that 1,700, right, to make sure that we're getting enough of each specific agent. But overall, you need about 2,000 calls. So for us, that's going to cost you about $1,500 a month. If you have the 45 agents that it would take to do these 60,000 calls with the $125, and I went down, I said $125 in my example here. Most of them are higher than that. That's going to be about $5,600 a month for only 85% accuracy, long-term contracts, and a huge setup. So what are we talking about here, right? If you're a 45-seat contact center, right, it makes 0 cents for you to go pay for 45 agents, $125 to $140 per seat per month. You're roughly around $6,000 a month for a lower accuracy than you would actually get from scoring 1,700 calls a month using the law of large numbers and using that usage model. I mean, I don't know how else I can put that. I have done a horrible job kind of in the past with the content that we've done explaining that. But until these big guys can come to me and say, hey, we're at that 95, 96, 97%, and none of them can. And again, like I said, I respect it because most of their websites tell you that, there's no reason to, again, be paying for these seat licenses. And when you see we can score now 100% of calls, right, to what level? And that's the question you need to start asking, right? Is it 85%? Because if I do it smaller, I actually get with a better large language model, my accuracy is actually better, right? So look at the blog post that I put out today. It's on the Auto QA site. Really cool. It also gives you things if you're going to do this on your own, right? Making sure that you have a sample that is representative of kind of the entire community. You're looking at stratifying your sampling, having automated selection. And this is the stuff that Auto QA does in our algorithm for you, right? So when we have an integration, we pull it in. All of that math is kind of already done for you, so you know that you're getting a fully scoped and accurate amount of universe of your QA. So the three things again that you're probably doing right now, especially if you're not using AI powered QA, right? That you're making mistakes with is when you kind of your QA cherry picks calls, right? We all know this. right? They pick calls based on duration. They don't want the 12-minute call. They'll take that 3.5-minute call, right? They'll look at things like, we're just going to listen to customer complaints. We're just going to listen to things that a supervisor, because they kind of maybe don't like an agent, or they think this agent's a little rough. So we're going to just listen to more of their calls than anybody else, right? So your sample size right there is already screwed up, right? And that can happen as well when you start to get into kind of the lower accuracy of scoring all of the calls. It's almost the same type of numbers that start to kind of show up that aren't as accurate, right? The other thing, again, with that is, again, just scoring too few calls per agent. And again, you don't need to score 100, but we have to have an algorithm that is set that matches how many calls that we need per month, and then making sure that we have a minimum amount. So there's kind of two levels to this. There's the overall contact center, then there's the agent. They're normally within about 5 to 7% number-wise of what we need to score. So again, if the number's too low on your overall contact center, then that means we're not getting enough per agent to get a really good look at each agent. So maybe that needs to be bumped up a little bit. We have all the math for that. I can tell you exactly, depending on the service level that you need, that you're looking for, which correlates to the amount of agents that you have, how long each specific call is, right? And then what you want that margin of error to be. We give you the exact amount of calls that you need scored. So again, I think a lot of people are being lied is not the right word, because I don't think anybody's lying, because they're telling the truth, but they're not telling the full story of what it means to score 100% of calls in a 2025, 2026 large language model cost structure, right? It's not as accurate as scoring with the greatest, best large language models, using the law of large numbers, having a specific number of calls to go by with the best models that give you the most accuracy, right? So again, I hope these questions start to get asked when you're looking at these type of tools, right? Ask what type of large language model they're using. Ask the level of accuracy that they're going to give you. What happens if your form isn't accurate? Do they change it for you? Do they change questions? How do they set up your questions? Like, all of those things you should be asking to make sure that you're getting the most accurate QA and you're getting the most, let's just keep it there, that you're getting the most accurate amount of data and data that you can use to make agent changes, and then looking at your overall contact center as well. So again, I will post this link to this blog post. I think it's really interesting. We also have one that really gets deep into the math, right? So if you're a total math nerd, DM me with that. I can kind of shoot you that, and that goes pretty crazy deep into all the math that we've done with this, looking at the statistics, looking at the law of large numbers. So again, I know that this is I'm kind of a little bit all over the place here, but I want to make sure that people understand that scoring 100% of the calls isn't always what it's cracked up to be. And a lot of times you're getting much less accurate data than if you're scoring a sample size with the best large language models with the highest margin of error, or the lowest margin of error, depending on how you look at it. All right, guys, thank you very much. Hopefully that this kind of at least gets you thinking a little bit about this, and I'll talk to everybody next week.